Hello, and welcome to today's lesson about your first programming assignment. That first assignment asked you to create a Windows Form application to calculate the gas mileage, the miles per gallon, for a given distance in miles and a quantity of gas in gallons. I'm adding a third piece asking for the cost of the specified trip based upon the given cost of gas per gallon. Analyzing requirements, here's an IPO chart identifying the three pieces of data that we will need for our input. We'll need to know the miles, the gallons, and the cost of gas. These three identified pieces of data should also be seen on our graphical user interface. So we have three text boxes to collect that from manual input from the keyboard. So I'm going to go ahead and run this program because the programming part has been finished. I get the graphical user interface to come up, and now it's asking for data. Good programming practice would mean that you've also thought about how to verify your program is correct or not. You need to have a set of expected values to compare against actual values when you run the program. So here's our test case, 12 miles, 4 gallons, $2.10. Following our process, miles per gallon, miles divided by gallons, we should get an answer of 3 for MPG, and cost, gallons times cost of gas, should give us $8.40. So we're going to go ahead and enter that into our text boxes, 4 gallons, 12 miles, $2.10, and we're going to press calculate. And we can see there must be a problem, because this is telling us that our miles per gallon is going to be a 0.333333. That does not match our expected value. This is indicating there's a logic error in the program. Cost is also wrong. So we have two logic errors that we need to find. Simply running the program again will not fix a logic problem. Logic problems are not identified in your development environment within your IDE. Logic problems are problems with how you coded the program. When we look at this code, I want to call your attention to the fact that you're going to see pieces of syntax that we haven't talked about yet. Because what I really want to do today is focus on how do I find a logic error. I find that using a tool called the Debugger. So in your IDE, you'll see you have a debug tab, and we're going to talk about a couple of these features in this video. The first feature is a breakpoint. In order to debug, you need to first set breakpoints. Breakpoints are easy. Just go over here, double click. The red dots indicate a breakpoint has been set. You can also go up into the debug menu and you can see where there's new breakpoints that you can set. A breakpoint is literally that. It will break into the code while the program is running. The GUI is running, you've pressed the button, and it'll break into the code and you'll actually be able to see the lines of code that you wrote. So we're going to have a couple breakpoints here. Now all we have to do is run the program. So to run the program, you simply press start. Somehow I must have pressed start. I go ahead and I enter the data in here. Remember, it was 4 gallons at 12 miles at $2.10. So we saw the GUI, I pressed the button, and now instead of getting those pop-up message boxes, we're actually inside the code. We're placed at our first breakpoint. Our first breakpoint, or any breakpoint, should always be executable code that potentially could cause an error. Comments will not cause us an error. Establishing or declaring a variable will not cause us an error. But maybe working between different data types, that could cause us an error. Or pulling data from the form into the wrong variable, that could cause us an error. So what I'm demonstrating here with the mouse is the idea of how I can see content of a variable. Just by mousing over, I can verify that I really put a 4 in for gallons, and it's really 4.0 in RAM as I expected it to be as a double data type. Again, this is probably a piece of information not everybody has learned yet or worked a lot with, but don't worry, with practice you'll get to it. This line of code, however, has not executed yet. It's ready to be executed. I need to step into it. Now that it's actually executed, I can see the same thing for my 12 for my miles has been changed to 12.0 as a double data type. I can continue to step. And here is a change to code from what you've written. Your code would have the mathematical calculation for miles per gallon right in here. Instead here, this is going to branch off into what we can call a predefined procedure. In this case, it's actually a function. So it's going to be code that's outside of the event handler for our click of the button. And by stepping, we're going to be able to see how we leave the event handler, and now we're down in here in a function. Our function has the calculation for mileage. We said on our IPO chart that that should be miles divided by gallons. When we look at our code, we see that it's, gallons divided by miles. That's not going to work. I have my math wrong. So at this point, I need to stop the debugger and I need to make my correction. This should be miles per or divided by gallons. Miles per gallon. So now that I've made a change, I need to test that change. Start my debugger up or start my program up, put in my 4 gallons, my 12 miles at $2.10, calculate. Since my breakpoints are still on, the code breaks again and shows me where I'm at in the process. If I want to remove a breakpoint, double click, take the red dot away. If I want to jump from a breakpoint to a breakpoint, I can press continue. So here I am again, ready to go off into that predefined procedure to compute gas mileage. It hasn't executed yet. I need to step into it. Step through, predefined procedures, come back. Now that it's executed, mouse over, I can see that I'm getting 3.0. That sounds better. Also, I want to call attention down here. This is a watch window, another way to see your variables. So let's add one, DEC total cost. Type it in. I can see right now it has a value of 0. If you remember, that also had a problem. Let's see if we got that fixed though. We can see if we have it fixed just by pressing continue. Since I have no more breakpoints, I'm going to actually go right to the end of the program. Vehicle average, miles per gallon, 3. Matches my IPO. Cost of the trip, $25.20. Still have a problem. Doesn't mean I run the program again. Means I stop it. I've now figured that miles per gallon is correct. Let's take that breakpoint off. We're worried about cost. If I start it up, I hope you're starting to get the hang of this. 4 gallons, 12, 2.10, calculate. I'm ready to go off to a predefined procedure called compute total cost to calculate the cost. If I go back to my IPO, I remind myself cost should be gallons times cost of gas. So I should be using cost and gallons, but I can already see my problem right here. I'm going to send it miles, which is 12, and cost, which is $2.10, with a D at the end. That's that example of using a forced literal. So I can see right here in my code, this is my other logic problem. Looks to me like I probably did a copy and a paste of code. That's a common thing that students do. Then you have to remember to make sure you modify that line of code that you pasted. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to stop. I see my problem without even having to step into it. It's not miles that I need to send down there. It's gallons. Not really sure I need another breakpoint at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it because there's a couple more things I want to show you in the debugger. So we start this up again, one last time. We put in our gallons, our miles, our 210, and we calculate. Breakpoint set, that's where I'm going to stop. If I want to add another one, remember I just double click. We already talked about the watch window down here. What I want to let you know is under debug, there's a section for windows. There are more windows than just a watch window that can be open and running while your code is executing. And you can pick which ones you need to watch at that time. And if you have multiples, you'll have tabs down here that let you switch in between the two. Same thing over here on the right side. If I click over here, I can see breakpoint information. I have 2 breakpoints. I have 2 breakpoints. So we talked about the continue. Let me go ahead and continue. And now I'm interested in some values. My output, your average will be 3 miles per gallon. Your trip will cost 8.4. That seems to match what my expected results were. So let me go ahead and press continue. I get 3 miles per the gallon and $8.40. I now can say that my code is finished. The output matches my expected results. So the goal today was to show you how to find a logic error in your program. A logic error is identified because you already have some expected results, and when you run the code, it doesn't match your actual results. The only way to find logic errors is to look at the code. Sometimes the errors are easy to find, sometimes we need to make use of the debugger. We covered the debugger menu. We talked about breakpoints, setting them and removing them. We talked about setting the breakpoint first, start. We also talked about your watch windows. We talked about mousing over your variables. We talked about the multiple windows at the bottom when you're in debugger and how you can use the tabs to go in and out of them. You're going to be expected to demonstrate that you know how to use the debugger tool. So as a minimum, review with your own code the items that were talked about in this video, but don't be afraid to go ahead and try some other tools within this menu. I'll be checking in with you to see your knowledge.